We should be just 10
GNC
seconds
confirms
away
good
from
deorbit
this
burn.
burn. And we have confirmation the first burn is in progress. Again, this is the first of the 5 major maneuvers. This one's called the phase burn, using those forward bulkhead thrusters. So just those 4 Dracos at the very top underneath the nose cone to do these what we call delta V maneuvers. So just big changes in velocity that we're going to do to gradually raise this orbit up over the coming hours. So we're watching some of the screens. We're able to see the burn is in progress. It's expected to last for several minutes, so we'll just keep an ear out, make sure that everything goes well, and then we'll get a report pretty much the same time the crew does on how the burn goes. So we're really just looking for those words, good burn, after it's complete.
Like we said, this is the first of 5 major burns that we will be performing over the coming hours. So this is basically the first major step in the free flight of Demo 2.
Expected loss of signal, Diego Garcia.
We're about 2 minutes into our phase burn. Everything looking good so far.
And Dragon SpaceX for awareness, burn is nominal so far.
All right, we have confirmation that burn is nominal thus far.
We concur, thank you.
Again, Bob and Doug have insight into how this is going the whole way just through those touchscreen control panel that they have right in front of them, those 3 screens. And when we get video inside the cabin back, hopefully as we're doing that manual flight test, you'll be able to get a really good close-up look at how they kind of have their window into Dragon itself. We are coming up on 3 minutes into our first major burn for their on-orbit path to the station. If you're just now joining, we are 3 minutes 45 seconds into the phase burn. This is the first major burn. You're getting a look inside of the SpaceX Mission Control Center here in Hawthorne. This is the team that's going to be responsible for looking over Dragon and Bob and Doug on their flight up to the International Space Station. We'll have some intermittent video comm with the Dragon spacecraft itself, only when we're over some ground stations and only when we're doing some of these different maneuvers. But right now, we're just continuing to listen in. That first burn's going well. Every single one of these burns is critical to actually making it to the International Space Station. So it seems like a pretty quiet time right now, but I mean, thrusters are firing on the Dragon spacecraft as we speak. They've been doing so for over 4.5 minutes. So we've got a little under 3 minutes to go, I think. Everything's looking good so far.
Dan, I remember during the Demo 1 splashdown or deorbit, basically leaving the International Space Station webcast, we were going back and forth saying that it feels like it takes forever to do anything, and it's the same deal going up to the ISS. Everything is super controlled, very precise, and very
in mission control and Hawthorne. I mean, these are the people behind the scenes who have done so much just to get us to this day, taking part in simulations and mission planning with the crew themselves. I mean, you're talking countless hours just to really rehearse everything for this flight before we get here, and we're here.
Yeah.
We had that successful launch, which still haven't come down from. That was incredible, and everything has gone smoothly so far. Good initial orbit. The burn started right on time, and it sounds like it's going well so far. We are just almost 6 minutes into the burn, so should be just about a minute or so left.
Like you've heard us say many times on today's webcast, prior to launch and after launch, Bob and Doug have rehearsed every single procedure with the SpaceX team for this mission. So everything that they're doing now and have done all day, despite the unfortunate scrub that we had earlier in the week, was just an extra practice test, which was awesome. But it was nothing new for them. They had rehearsed everything, and same goes with this. All of the procedures that we are running through now, and will continue to run through all through the duration of the mission. Bob and Doug have, they are super familiar with what's going to happen and what they're expected to do.
And we should be coming up near the end of the phase burn. Again, this is the first in 5. The next major one's going to be the boost burn. That's going to raise their orbit up to
and I didn't click this thing off. I look a bit rough right now. So thank y'all for joining the relaunch party, relaunch host watch
you'll see in
party
this
thing.
that when they do these burns,
that's what we're doing right now.
it looks like they're
Hey y'all,
kind of
I'm
doing
looking
a little bit of a loop-de-loop.
little dust right now. Not
this
dust.
graph is in relation
It's
to
not.
the space station itself.
It's not the best.
So
Hold
on
on.
one
I
axis,
accidentally
the Y,
unplugged
you
something.
have how far below you
There
are.
we go. So we're
and
back.
on the X, how
We're
far
back with
behind
it.
the station you still are. It's not perfectly to scale.
Here we go.
Dragon,
Not dusty.
SpaceX, nominal burn.
Boom. All right. So the relaunch is supposed to happen at 3:55
Nominal burn.
Central Time. So check it out. Keep watching. This has been
And
a
we
stressful
just heard the
week.
2 words we were hoping for.
Weekend
nominal
pass
burn. So
for all of us. Like it's just
one
been really
burn
stressful.
out of
So
5.
I'm actually really
checked.
happy that they're doing the
So
relaunch
that
today.
was
It's
the
gonna be really
first
cool
one.
to see.
The next one
So
coming
check
up
it
is
out.
gonna
Go
be the
follow
boost
NASA
burn
on
in
all
about
their
an
social
hour and
media.
24 minutes.
Keep watching.
Before they get to that, though, we are going to be looking forward to that manual flight test where they're going to be taking the reins and they're going to be taking control
muted.
of Dragon itself.
It's not.
Yeah, so in preparation for that moment, I highly encourage you all to check out the simulation that we have on SpaceX.com. It's actually an awesome opportunity for you to test your own skills at steering.
Hey, Dragon, SpaceX, we are disabling cameras, and you are go for suit doffing and on-orbit cabin configuration. Note that camera caps, which will be tethered, can be found in location 8, and cameras are currently configured.
Yeah, so as I was
Okay, Dragon copy, suit doffing in work. We see that the cameras are off, and we can do on-orbit activation.
Copy all. And Dragon, also at your convenience, if you can confirm the gas detectors are off location 14.
Welcome.
Okay, so what's going on at this point is Bob and Doug now have the opportunity to take their suits off. This is referred to as doffing, as donning is actually putting the suits on. They'll actually be able to remove those suits at this time, get a little bit more comfortable in the cabin, and they'll be putting those suits back on when they get closer to the International Space Station. And like I was saying before, I highly encourage you all to check out the simulation that we have online where you can test out your skills at steering Dragon and docking it to the International Space Station. That website is iss.sim.spacex.com. And like I said, you can test your own skills at flying Dragon.
And Dragon SpaceX, one additional note, no need to reply, but the next burn will be the boost burn. And that's in about 1 hour and 23 minutes per your timeline.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely give the Crew Dragon docking demonstration a try. It's a lot of fun. It gives you a pretty good appreciation of just how difficult it is to fly and maneuver in space when you're not just thinking about going forward and backward. You have every axis imaginable that you have to worry about. Took me a couple of tries. I know those first couple I got impatient and flew in way too quickly, and then one time started to spin pretty wildly out of control. So it's probably a good thing I'm down here and they're up there, but it's a lot of fun to check out.
Yeah, I was also really surprised at how many levels of control there are and how difficult it is to actually get them all to work in sync at the right speeds. Of everyone that I've spoken to that has tried it out first, it's unanimous. Everyone went too fast the first couple tries. I was the same. Although by my third or fourth try, I'm happy to say that my decades of Star Fox 64 training finally paid off. And I did. I managed to dock to the station after practicing a few times.
SpaceX Dragon, check.
And Dragon, you were a little broken, but I did copy you.
How about this time? How are you here on the cabin mic?
Loud and clear on the cabin mic.
Copy that.
We have you the same.
Well, with that first burn nominal and out of the way, the next one coming up in a little over an hour and 20 minutes from now, the next thing we're really going to be looking forward to is this manual free flight. So as we've said quite a bit, Crew Dragon is designed to fly fully autonomous, meaning the spacecraft does all of the navigating and burns to the station all on its own. There are manual override controls, though, on the spacecraft that enables the astronauts to step in, take control should any issues arise. And to test out those controls, Bob and Doug are about to do the first of 2 planned manual maneuvers inside Dragon.
So they'll be using the touchscreen controls that we've seen at various points in the webcast, the crew display panel, and they'll practice putting Dragon in what's known as LVLH attitude. LVLH, or local vertical, local horizontal configuration, means that they'll use Earth itself as a guide and reorient Dragon with the nose cone pointing forward and the bottom of Dragon, and at the bottom of Dragon, at least from where Bob and Doug are sitting, the Earth will be directly below them. So think of it as they'll basically be putting Dragon in the same orientation as an airplane flying over Earth.
And they'll be taking this manual control, but they'll stop one step before actually sending the command of their attitude adjustments to Dragon's flight computer. So the flight computer itself is still going to continue flying Dragon, and as soon as they're done, they'll hand control back over. The flight computer will reorient Dragon, and it will continue on its way. It's going to fly in a whole bunch of different attitudes on the way up to station. Unlike the space station pretty much only flies in that LVLH. It's pretty much always going the same direction. But that's because it's got very big joints for the solar arrays to rotate around. For Dragon, they'll have to maneuver the trunk to charge the batteries, maneuver to sometimes communicate with the different satellites, depending on which antennas they're using. And so this LVLH will just be a test for this manual flight test.
Exactly. And like we said before, there is that simulation online where you can check it out for yourself.
Yeah, definitely get a chance to go pilot Dragon. We're going to be seeing that tomorrow morning. It was surreal when we got to see it on Demo 1 with Dragon coming in. We've got some great cameras right on that docking port where Dragon's going to be pointed. It's going to be really exciting to see them come in for that final approach.
Dragon SpaceX, no response required, but we are going to be enabling branch 2 of the helium system This is expected to be done on orbit to protect for a scrub. And Dragon SpaceX, this is just clarification. This will get us back into the expected on-orbit config.
Dragon copies.
Dragon SpaceX prop reconfiguration is complete and expected.
And if you're just now tuning in, you missed the launch, so you might want to head online and make sure you go back and check that out. But Bob Bank and Doug Hurley, our two NASA astronauts, are flying through outer space right now after that successful launch just a little while ago. We're going to be bringing you this ground track that you're looking at. You're going to be able to see exactly where Dragon is over planet Earth, and you're going to see a number of different lines, so usually 3 at a time. And so what that is showing is each of those orbits around planet Earth for the Dragon spacecraft. And it looks like it's wavy, but that's because you're taking a globe and then stretching it out flat. And so that's why it looks like, so it is a straight line if you were actually looking at it around the globe. So with that on-time launch, they've already traveled well away from the Kennedy Space Center. They're already downrange, way in excess of 600 miles. But they're going to continue to fly around the planet Earth. They're going to continue to raise their orbit over the next 19 hours. They were successful in doing so with their first burn, the phase burn. That was done.
And SpaceX Dragon for suit doffing. We started a timer for the drying of both suits about 4.5 minutes ago, if you guys want to back us up.
Copy. Timer started for suit drying 4.5 minutes ago. We'll back you up.
And that was the Demo 2 Commander Doug Hurley talking to the core behind us right here in Mission Control Hawthorne. The crew has doffed or gotten out of their spacesuits that they've been in for several hours now, and they kind of hang it up, almost like hanging up your clothes just to dry, and they're going to continue to they have a timer just to know when they're fine to just pack them away. They're not going to have to put those suits on again until tomorrow when it's time to dock with the space station.
Quick, I want to comment there on the view on the right-hand side of your screen. That is, if Bob and Doug were looking out the window, that's basically what they'd be seeing right now. That's a live shot from Dragon, and with Planet Earth rotating below it.
Yeah, they're going to continue to make their way up over the next couple of hours. We have a number of items coming up for them, though. We are still counting down to that manual flight test. That should be coming up within the next half hour, and that's going to be Bob and Doug actually taking control of the Dragon spacecraft for the very first time. So that's going to be really exciting. Hopefully we'll get some video inside of the cabin. We'll have video inside the cabin anytime that the crew is ready for us to come on board. And anytime we have connection through ground stations, through SpaceX's worldwide network of ground stations to communicate with the spacecraft.
Yeah, and just real quick, I want to correct myself now that I can see the image a little better. That's actually a live shot from the International Space Station.
I thought it looked like a radiator.
Yeah, for a second I thought it was the Dragon trunk there. But nope, that is the ISS, so that's where Bob and Doug are heading. And like we have been saying so far, this is just the beginning of what is a 19-hour journey for them. So they've got a lot of stuff coming up. Like we've been saying, there are 5 main burns. We've completed the first of those 5 main burns, and they will be going to sleep in a while. Well, they'll eat first, and then they'll get to sleep. And that sleep portion of the mission is actually really important because we need them to be really well rested and comfortable whenever they start doing the approach phases to the International Space Station. So they get scheduled 8 hours, if I remember correctly. Yep. And I mean, you can see whenever we had the views inside of Dragon earlier, you can see that
SpaceX Dragon 4.300 is complete.
Copy. 4.300 complete.
So again, that's Bob and Doug just getting the cabin configured. They're out of their suits, getting a little bit more comfortable, and then hopefully we'll be getting to that manual flight test in just a little while. Yeah, they'll have about 8 hours of sleep scheduled. I don't know how you can go to sleep on a day like today, but I also don't know how they were as calm and collected as they were. So again, you're dealing with some special people when you're flying somebody into space.
For sure. And as we saw from our views inside the cabin earlier, they will be sitting in a sitting position while they're sleeping, whereas on the International Space Station, they have a flat bed, if you will, that they get strapped in. So the sleeping situation that they have for their ride on Dragon is definitely a little different than what they'll have on their longer stay on the International Space Station.
just to walk you through quickly, we're looking live right now from Bob and Doug's destination, the International Space Station. They are scheduled to dock tomorrow, with that initial docking coming at 7:29 a.m. Pacific time. So over here on the West Coast, it'll be 10:29 a.m. over on the East Coast. It's about a 19-hour ride. It'll be 19 hours and 7 minutes if they dock directly on time from launch all the way to that docking. It'll take 5 successful burns to get them in close proximity to the International Space Station, followed by a number of smaller maneuvers during that rendezvous and that final approach sequence. But it's going to be a pretty lengthy trip for them to get there. And again, starting off from Kennedy Space Center just less than an hour ago, I think at this point. Time is starting to all flow together, but already moving in excess of 17,000 miles an hour as they continue to raise their orbit and chase down the space station. And once they get there, they're going to be joining the Expedition 63 crew already in progress. There's NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy's the current commander. He's on the right there of that photo. And then he was joined right now by 2 Russian cosmonauts, Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner. They've been on board since they launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome just several weeks ago. Right now, only a 3-person crew on board. That's one of the major reasons we wanted to get this commercial crew capability online, because we're no longer flying 4 Soyuz spacecraft a year. We're only doing 2 a year. And so we need these commercial spacecraft, Dragon now in orbit, and eventually the Boeing Starliner to begin carrying larger crews up to orbit. So they're going to be joining them. Chris Cassidy, the current commander of the space station, is going to welcome Doug and Bob on board. They'll be residing inside what we call the USOS segment. It's kind of the half of the station.
Dragon SpaceX for suit drawing, low priority.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we just wanted confirmation that you are drawing suit 1 or suit 2 and seat 1. Just because we're not seeing telemetry from umbilical.
Yeah, that's affirmative. My suit from seat 2 is in seat 1, and it's hooked up, and we've verified airflow.
Copy, thanks.
And at this point, the crew is out of their suits and they're drying them, so they're actually reconnecting them to the umbilicals of the seats that they're not using. You heard them refer to seats 2 and 1. If you were looking inside the Dragon capsule, it goes seats 1 through 4 from right to left, so it's a little backwards. Doug Hurley is in seat number 2, that's the commander's seat. Bob Behnken, seat 3, that's the pilot's seat for this flight. And obviously, nobody in seats 1 and 4 on this way uphill, but they are getting their suits connected to the umbilicals, which can provide communications when the astronauts are actually in the suit, but you can actually flow air into the suit through that umbilical, and they're just using that to dry it out now that the crew's not wearing them and they're comfortable on orbit.
Yeah, I can imagine that despite that airflow going through the suits throughout the entire time of leading up to launch and launch itself, I can imagine it's still, with the adrenaline and their hearts pumping, I imagine it might have gotten a little sweaty in there anyway.
Yeah, doing a little bit kind of like hanging your laundry in space almost, but they're going to be out of these suits for the next several hours. They'll be able to get a little bit more comfortable in the Dragon capsule. They will be wearing them again when it's time to dock, though. We typically have astronauts suit up anytime they're in a dynamic operation, so that's obviously a launch, anytime you're docking or undocking from the spacecraft, and then definitely on that re-entry and landing.
Yeah, so as you've heard us say before about these suits, they are custom made for Bob and Doug, so there's really no chance that they might be able to put the other ones on, like their name is stitched on it for obvious reasons, but these suits are highly intelligent and highly functional, so even though they naturally will be more comfortable out of the suit, they have said that the suits themselves are pretty nice to sit in, and as you can see from today's events and the launch attempt that we had before, they do spend quite a bit of time in those suits. So yeah, they are custom made for each individual astronaut, made here on site in Hawthorne, California. Same building that we build the rocket, and same building that we build the spacecraft. So pretty cool to see of that piece of hardware itself now in action, finally in Dragon.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about how the suit is almost like a mini spacecraft itself. And we always say that when we talk about when crew members go out for spacewalks, because that suit is kind of self-contained to have all of the breathing air, things like that, just in case they need it. Specifically for these flight suits on Dragon, they're going to be most needed if you have a depressurization, so just a loss of cabin pressure inside of Dragon. They're able to be in their suits. They can get pressurized nitrox or even pure oxygen if they are depressurized, and their suit will be at a lower pressure, because if you put the suit up all the way to 14 psi, it'd be kind of what we look at when you talk about wearing the large EMU, the great big white suit that we wear for spacewalks. Pressurizing that all the way up to atmospheric pressure would be you in a giant balloon where you probably wouldn't be able to move your arms very easily. So when you're in a suit and it's pressurized, you're typically at a much lower PSI. I'm not sure what the SpaceX suits are at, but our EMUs are at about 4, and then you have to up the oxygen content in what you're breathing just to make sure you're still getting enough. So they'll be able to flow pure oxygen into those suits if required.
Yeah, so just as a quick update, in case if you are just joining us, we have obviously lifted off. Bob and Doug are now on their way to the International Space Station, probably about an hour and a half into what will be a 19-hour journey in chasing down the space station. And we are approaching what is known as the Far Field Manual Flight Test. And this is basically the opportunity that they'll have to take back control of the Dragon capsule and just perform the ability to pilot it manually. Dragon is a fully autonomous spacecraft, meaning that it drives itself. It is highly intelligent. The flight computer makes all the calls using all the inputs from the sensors and the data that it receives. And so realistically, this is meant to be a fairly hands-off flight to the International Space Station. But in the event that for some reason Bob and Doug need to, or whichever astronaut is on board Crew Dragon might need to take manual control, the Far Field Manual Flight Test, which we have coming up in just a few minutes actually, is what we will be doing to basically complete the test objective for this mission, saying, yeah, that is absolutely possible to do.
Yeah, it's right there in the name. It's a demonstration mission 2, which on demonstration mission 1, we didn't have crew members, but did a lot of tests of Dragon's maneuverability, even testing an abort when we were on that final approach and docking. And so Bob and Doug are really just on board to really put it through the ringer, to put all the systems through and check them out that would require a crew being on board, because this will be that final test before NASA looks to certify SpaceX to begin those regular crewed flights to the space station. So we're talking about those 6-month to year-long missions with crew members living and working in space. And we're looking at doing that later this year, as soon as we're wrapped up with Demo 2, as soon as a month after Bob and Doug return. We'll be looking for that next crew to go up, 3 NASA astronauts and 1 from our partner agency, JAXA, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. So things aren't slowing down. We're just at the very start of this mission. It's hard to think that we're already thinking forward to the next one this quickly, but that's just the nature of the business right now. Things
Absolutely.
Are definitely picking up in space.
Yeah, as SpaceX engineer myself, part of my job is to help NASA come in and certify the hardware that we're building. So I have been inside of the capsule that's now in space. I've been inside the capsule that, as Jessica Jensen mentioned earlier in the webcast, earlier this week was just in the Dragon clean room, which is down the hallway from us here, which is now in a different building for it to complete high pressure testing. But as someone that has spent the last 5 years working for this mission that we're executing today, it is so surreal to now be performing the parts of testing, of demonstrating with the astronauts. I still remember hearing the comms check on Wednesday of, just pre-flight, making sure that all different the key players in the mission were able to communicate back and forth, as well as to Bob and Doug. And I just got chills whenever I heard that tone of them communicating back and forth to mission control.
Yeah, well, it was great to see them get off the ground today, and hopefully we see them in just about 10 minutes or so doing this flight test. So we're going to continue to follow along. Again, we're here for the duration.
Dragon, SpaceX for timeline.
Hopefully we get a call on how quickly we get that test right here.
Go ahead.
Okay, just for awareness, we have the manual flight demonstration here in about 10 minutes. As soon as that is complete, you have your go to step into your meal 3, and just to be aware that the boost burn is at 2142, so those 3 events are going to be pretty close in succession.
Thanks for the update. Yeah, we were looking at that. I think we're just about changed, so we'll give you a go to come back on board here in about maybe 5 minutes or so.
Copy that. We'll be standing by. And also at your discretion, you can also de-stow the floater camera. And this is just prior to 2238.
All right, so there you heard it.
Copy that.
Should be joining Bob and Doug back inside the Dragon capsule in about 5 minutes or so. And then we should be seeing that manual flight test in a little less than 10 minutes from now. The International Space Station right now is flying. Let's get a quick look at the ground track. It's flying over the Pacific Ocean just to the southwest of Mexico, about to swing out over the central part of the United States. At the time of launch, though, it was right over North Carolina and actually passed right over the Cape minutes before flight. And we were able to get a couple of images down from the current Expedition 63 commander, Chris Cassidy. This picture is of that pad, 39A, at the Kennedy Space Center with Bob and Doug still on the launch pad, the rocket still there, taken 2 minutes before the launch.
That is
and
incredible.
He was able to send a couple of them down. So eagle eye for Chris Cassidy to snap these. We literally just got these down, so we wanted to share them with everybody. But the space station was flying directly over at the time of launch. We're almost at an hour and a half since launch, and it's already almost gone around the entire planet. Again, it's about to cross over the United States in the next couple of minutes. So that's what they're chasing down, and that's where you can kind of start to appreciate why this might take so long. When something is moving that quickly around planet Earth, it's not as easy as just kind of getting your car and going a couple miles. It takes a lot of energy, which means a lot of fuel, which can mean a lot of time to catch up to another spacecraft already in orbit.
Absolutely. And the fact that it is in orbit, the International Space Station in orbit around Earth, is really critical to understand there, because in reality, Bob and Doug are only going 250 miles up. So that's basically the distance from Los Angeles to San Francisco. So when you think about, even though it does take them a long time to catch up to the International Space Station, it's because it's going so fast, and they have to go around planet Earth a number of times in order to chase it down. But in reality, they are not. They are above Earth only about 250 miles, which I believe is a pretty relatable distance for everyone in terms of understanding just how far up they go.
All right, well, we are just about 6 minutes away from the start of that manual flight test. We'll hang out for a couple of minutes. Hopefully we see inside the capsule again shortly, and then we'll be joining Bob and Doug as they take the reins of Dragon for the very first time.
Yeah, and that timer for the suit drying, we should be getting confirmation of that.
SpaceX Dragon for suit drying.
There we go.
Dragon, go ahead.
Jay, our timer shows about 23 minutes for suit drying, and we're holding in 5 Bravo decimal 7 if you're happy with us shutting off the suit fan.
Yeah, we concur on the timer, and we are go for you to shut off the suit fan.
Should be just about 5 minutes or so from that manual flight test. Again, we're just standing by and hopefully getting those views back inside Dragon with Bob and Doug shortly. If you are just now joining us, we did launch successfully 3:22 p.m. Eastern time. So it was a flawless ride uphill. We got them right into their initial orbit. We've already done the first of our 5 major burns to get to the International Space Station, that phase burn being done successfully on time. We're standing by for the manual flight test coming up in the next couple of minutes.
SpaceX Dragon, you guys are welcome back on board anytime.
Copy all. Yeah, we'll be setting up for the manual piloting demo shortly.
Okay, so that was Bob and Doug giving the okay for us to turn the cameras back on inside of Crew Dragon. And I did hear in one of the previous commands earlier that...
and Jay, just a quick tag up, the detectors are all confirmed off OFF.
Copy, confirmed off.
I did hear earlier that they got the okay to unstow the floater cams. So maybe if we're lucky, we might get a little bit of a hello from Bob and Doug. Fingers crossed.
It's going to be incredible to see this flight test, though, because, I mean, imagine if you were sitting in the cockpit of like an F-18 the first time somebody flew it or something. I mean, these are test pilots test piloting a spacecraft, and we're going to be looking right over their shoulder, and that's an incredible, like, I'm really excited to see this and to just really be with them their whole flight up to space. They'll have this, and then we'll have another burn coming up in a little less than 50 minutes from now. That'll be the second one. Would be a boost burn to really raise up that orbit as they begin to chase down the International Space Station. Then for the rest of the day, the crew doesn't have a whole lot. They'll have their evening meal, which we'll go through in a little while, and then it'll be time for bed. They'll have about 8 hours scheduled for sleep, and then they'll be able to wake up tomorrow and do that final approach and docking to the International Space Station. So it's already been a long day for them. They've only got a few more things, and then they'll be able to kind of kick back and enjoy outer space for a little bit.
Yeah. And like we said before, this far-field manual flight test that's coming up is the opportunity for them to is the opportunity for Bob and Doug to take manual control of the Dragon spacecraft, just to demonstrate that it is possible to do so in the event that they need to steer it themselves. This is a demonstration mission, so this far-field manual flight test is actually one of our big test objectives for this mission. So that'll be really exciting to see. But touching on the point that Dan said, which, by the way, that test should be coming up in a...
And Dragon SpaceX, for awareness, we're back on board.
Dragon copies. Welcome aboard.
All right, so that was the confirmation that we should be getting camera views inside the cabin once again. And there we got them. So we can see they're looking at their touch screens, preparing for this manual test that will be coming up in about 30 seconds. What a sight. I love that we can see right over their shoulders. We can see the screens.
Yeah, it's just incredible. If you keep your eye on the displays, that one on the far left will look very familiar to you if you've done that automated, or not, if you've done the manual docking demo that we were talking about a little bit earlier on the SpaceX website. Doug Hurley's going to be at the physical controls, so he's going to be the one flying today.
Dragon SpaceX, if you are ready, we're going to command far field pointing.
Here we go.
We are ready.
Copy. I'll give you the go after the transition is verified.
So again, they're going to put Dragon into a far field pointing.
Copy.
So they're going to put it into a special configuration just to let the flight computer know that, hey, this manual flight test is happening, and then the flight computer won't be trying to fight it or adjust the attitude at any point during this. And again, all of the inputs that Doug is going to make as he's doing the manual flying, they're not going to send those final commands to the flight computer. So when they're done, flight computer takes back control of the spacecraft, continues flying on its way to the station.
Yeah, so I would imagine that right now they must be really excited to conduct this test. Bob and Doug are test pilots. This is what they live for, and for them to have the opportunity to test out a completely new vehicle, this upcoming test is certainly something that I'm sure they've been looking forward to.
So we're just going to continue to stand by. We'll get this test started. We'll be hopefully over their shoulder the whole time, and we'll bring you the results after it's concluded.
Okay, Dragon SpaceX, we'll see you in far field pointing. You are go to perform manual piloting test per 4.042, far field manual piloting. The test must be completed by 21:26.
Okay, we copy. We've got to go for 4.042. We'll put that in work and understand the test needs to be completed by 21:26 Zulu.
Good readback.
This is Mission Control Houston. For those of you watching, Bob and Doug are inside the Crew Dragon vehicle performing the manual flight test. You can maybe see a little bit on the front screens here from the inside cabin. Bob and Doug manually piloting the Crew Dragon. They're in something called local vertical, local horizontal. If you were to orbit around the Earth and not be an LVLH, you'd pretty much be staying at the same attitude as you orbit the Earth. The LVLH attitude pretty much points you towards the horizon, so you can follow the horizon as you orbit the Earth. This is a demonstration that Bob and Doug are conducting now. In the event that they were to take manual control, they can regain their attitude, point it towards the horizon of the Earth. Everything seems to be going according to plan. You can hear some of the Dragon teams saying they might be smiling a little bit as everything's going towards the manual flight test, and right according to plan. They had trained for this a lot on the ground in various simulations. Doing this manual test in orbit will give a nice relative perspective on how the Dragon performs in simulations versus the real thing. This is the first of 2 manual flight tests, the first one being a far-field demonstration pointing toward the horizon of the Earth. It's called far field because it's far from the International Space Station. There's one more called the near field, and it's, you guessed it, close to the International Space Station. Dragon will point its way towards the International Space Station and perform a manual flight test, essentially changing its orientation in various axes, X, Y, and Z, and making sure that control is as expected. That coming up a little bit closer to docking. Right now, everything's looking good for this manual far-field flight test. From here in Mission Control Houston, we're watching very closely. Back over to you over in Hawthorne.
Hey, thanks, Gary. Hey, thanks, Gary. Yeah, they are still going through that manual flight test. Again, this is their very first time to be at the controls of Dragon. They're putting it into that LVLH, so they're literally just using the Earth as kind of their guide point to realign Dragon. So they're essentially flying over it like an airplane when they're in this configuration. The nose cone of Dragon pointed forward into their velocity vector, so the direction that they're going. And then the bottom of the spacecraft, or essentially where Bob and Doug's feet are when they're in their seats, is pointing back down towards the Earth. So they're just sending commands to the thrusters, primarily those service section thrusters. There's 12 of them around the lower part of the Dragon spacecraft that are used for what we call attitude control, which is what they're testing out right now. And they're just going to continue to do this. And this is really their last major task for the day.
And it has been a day for sure. After they perform this test, they will have the opportunity to have their evening meal. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but it's safe to say that if I were an astronaut, I would definitely have an appetite right now, and I would most certainly be looking forward to having my dinner.
Yeah, our video views on board Dragon will be a little broken up over the flight there. We'll obviously get a lot of great views of the spacecraft on its final approach to the International Space Station tomorrow morning, which we are going to be looking forward to. Again, it's about a 19-hour trip from launch till docking. We'll be looking forward to that docking tomorrow morning.
Something to note, we will be staying on air for the entire time until Bob and Doug hop on the International Space Station. So I know that this will certainly be setting a personal record in terms of longest webcast that I've participated in. I think second place was the Demo 2 Splashdown, or excuse me, the Demo 1 Splashdown webcast. But yeah, we will certainly be live this whole time, bringing you updates from Bob and Doug as they approach the International Space Station and eventually climb on board.
And we'll be live even overnight as they go through their sleep period, be bringing you just some highlights from throughout the day, including what we're seeing right now. And then we just really want to stay with them the whole way just to make sure everything is going well with their flight as they make this historic first trip on a commercial spacecraft to the International Space Station. But right now, we're back inside the cabin. Doug Hurley on the left there, Bob Behnken on the right. Doug Hurley sending inputs to the Dragon spacecraft through that touchscreen and then manually adjusting. You can see right in the center of his crosshair, it looks like the screen is kind of split in half between light and dark. The light part of the screen in the bottom, that's planet Earth.
and SpaceX Dragon for 4.042. We see ourselves down through step 2.6. We'll have some comments on the thermal camera blanking out during the maneuver, which was different from training, but other than that, we think we're ready to move on to section 3.
Copy. Yeah, we saw those flickers as well, and we are ready to copy your words and copy you're moving into section 3.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and pick up in section 3. Here comes far field coast.
Copy.
And we're down to 3.4, SpaceX. We're ready for you to command back to far wait.
Copy. And Dragon SpaceX for this place.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is to mitigate a risk for a benign command being sent. We'd like you to go to audio settings from the display you use for manual piloting and adjust the gain setting for seat 1 or 4.
Okay, that's complete, and I did it on seat 1.
Copy. And expect the transition to far wait momentarily.
Okay, copy that.
And this is the team coming to you from Hawthorne. It does look like they've just about wrapped up this manual flight test. So again, we're able to watch Doug Hurley, the commander of Demo 2, take control of the Dragon spacecraft using those touchscreen displays. At this point, they're handing control back to Dragon's flight computers, and that'll be the last major task for them other than dinner.
Yeah, so as we can see on their screens there, they are completing, and like we mentioned before, we do have a simulation available online if you want to check out what it's like to steer Dragon manually yourself. Just head on over to, I believe it's iss-sim.spacex.com.
Yep, that's the one. And at this point, you've seen what the actual Dragon controls look like. So the ones online will look very familiar. Looks like we did just lose that ground station connection, so the video drops out inside the cabin. But that's one major flight test in the book. It's one of our major milestones for this mission. Again, it's a demonstration mission, so we're trying to really put the Dragon spacecraft through the paces. The next thing that's going to be coming up for them is their first meal on board Dragon.
Yeah. So just real quick, that view that you see there on your right-hand side, that's coming to us live from the International Space Station, Bob and Doug's ultimate destination for this particular mission.
Dragon SpaceX, you are now back in far wait. You're welcome to start your meal at your discretion. We've reconfigured interior cameras to no interior, and enjoy your new spaceship.
We are definitely doing that. Yeah, let us do a little housekeeping and get a little bit of dinner, and we'll call you back and bring you on board once we get everything cleaned up. But it's been a spectacular spaceship so far. Congrats to the Dragon teams and obviously everybody there in Hawthorne that's done all this work to get us up here.
Thanks, guys. Boost burn is in 30 minutes, and next time you'll hear from us, it will be with Laura.
Just like to say thanks to you, Jay, and Jason, and the whole Ascent team. It was quite a ride. We'll certainly tell you about it when we have a little debrief on board station. And yeah, everybody go home and one thing, just kind of remember this moment. It's been pretty incredible, and you guys have a great night.
Thanks. You too, and we'll be following along.
So what we heard there, a little bit of back and forth between mission controllers here in Hawthorne, behind me, and Bob and Doug chasing down the International Space Station. We had confirmation that Farfield went well and that the capsule was put back into its autopilot, essentially. So they will now be starting up their evening meal. Okay, I guess there was no comms there. So like I said, they're going to start their first meal on board Dragon. They have enough food on Dragon for 12 meals, along with the snacks for the trip up. As we heard Bob and Doug describe before launching, the food is similar to MREs, or meals ready to eat, which that's what they consume during their time in the service with the military. So their MREs are essentially prepackaged meals that are ready for consumption without any heating or addition of any ingredients. They, of course, also have about 30 liters or 8 gallons of water up there with them.
Yeah, it's just the food to kind of get them to the space station. Once they arrive on board, all of their food is waiting for them, and they'll be enjoying the same menu that long-duration crew members have on board. It has quite a bit of variety, and it's a lot of thermostabilized or dehydrated foods or irradiated foods. So really just made to be shelf-stable, so have a really long shelf life. A lot of the food that flies to station is good for at least 2 years. And they're able to extract a lot of the water from the food before they fly it, which saves on weight. And we all know that weight means more fuel, which means more money when we're launching things into space. Weight is everything. And once they're on board, they can just add water back into the food through special water dispensers on board the station and just heat it up. And they have everything from shrimp cocktail to they get pretty cool holiday meals. I know they always get turkey and stuffing and things like that on Thanksgiving. So they'll just have that once they get on board.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear what kind of food is available on the International Space Station. And depending on your mission as an astronaut, you could be up there for a few weeks or a few months. So it's safe to say that I can certainly appreciate the excitement we see on their faces when they open up a cargo Dragon mission that has fresh oranges, because that isn't really a standard option available to them. So it's pretty awesome that we're able to send them treats like that, that puts it into perspective in terms of what is available and what space food actually entails. It's not all just dehydrated ice cream, although I am a sucker for dehydrated ice cream.
Yeah, coincidentally, the biggest thing that they usually look forward to is ice cream flying up in some of the cold packs on spacecraft like the Cargo Dragon. So always a treat for them. We haven't heard if they're bringing up any special treats for Chris and their Russian crew members, but I'm sure, again, we'll follow along the crew members on their social media, and we absolutely encourage you to do so. Both Bob and Doug are on Twitter, and you can go check them out and follow their entire mission throughout. and just see what they're doing in space every single day.
Yeah, they're also both on Instagram. And I have found that their posts have been really interesting over the last few days. I got a chuckle when I saw Doug post the breakfast, steak and eggs. I always wondered what they would be eating the day of, and what really fascinated me was that NASA has plates. I was not expecting there to be a NASA plate being served to them, and I just thought that was a nice little insight into their life as preparing for Demo 2.
Yeah, the meatball's everywhere right now. It's everywhere.
I personally, I'm a big fan of the Worm. I'm certainly with my co-host Lauren Lyons on Team Worm there from the earlier webcast. Just real quick, we have a tweet that we would like to share with you all. Proud to yield the title of the last commander of an American-launched spacecraft to @AstroDoug, who, with @AstroBenkin, has returned U.S. to space from KSC after 3,252 days. Well done at commercial crew and SpaceX.
Yeah, and of course, so that tweet comes from Chris Ferguson. He was the commander of the very last shuttle mission, STS-135, which Doug Hurley was his crewmate and his pilot for. Mm-hmm. Chris Ferguson works with our other commercial crew provider, Boeing, and he's been instrumental in the development of their Starliner, and will be on the first Starliner mission to carry people along with NASA astronauts Mike Fink and Nicole Mann. So really cool. It's really just kind of a big space flight family. We all like it when each other succeed, and so it's really great to see those words from him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we said, the crew will be coming up to their evening meal. Like we mentioned before, they are MREs, or meals ready to eat, which is what Bob and Doug both would have consumed while they were serving in the military. So they would be pretty familiar with this. I associate MREs with kind of like camping food, your granola bars, the things that you can just pull out of your backpack and eat on the way. No water added, no temperature changing, just straight out of the package. So yeah, that's about what they should be doing now. As we are, let's get a quick check. We're approaching the T+2 hour mark here in a few minutes. So gosh, I can't believe that we lifted off 2 hours ago practically. Time has flown and stayed still all at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like it. I mean, in addition to that meal, though, the other major milestone we're going to be looking for is the second of our 5 burns to get to the International Space Station. It's going to be the boost burn. That's coming up at about 2:42 p.m. Pacific time, or in about 22 minutes or a little bit more. So we're going to be